Hi, folks. Thanks for attending tonight, and we will get started in 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, and thank you for attending the Livingston Avenue Bridge Project Public Information Meeting and Public Hearing. My name is Maura Fitzpatrick, and I will be serving as the host for this virtual presentation. On behalf of Marie-Therese Dominguez, the Commissioner of the New York State Department of Transportation, and Amit Bose, the Administrator for the Federal Railroad Administration, I welcome you to this important two-part public meeting and public hearing on the Livingston Avenue Bridge Project. Part 1 will be an information meeting as part of the National Environmental Policy, or NEPA, Act process. Attendees may ask project-related questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and answers will be provided after a pre-recorded presentation if necessary. These questions will not be part of the official public record. Part 2 will be a public hearing to satisfy Article 2 of the New York State Eminent Domain Procedure Law. This section will be followed by the formal comment period, where attendees will have 3 minutes to make a public statement that will be recorded for the public record. Prior to the presentations, I will go over some general information on how to participate in this virtual setting. Okay, the virtual meeting will begin with a pre-recorded section that will run uninterrupted. Questions about the project may be asked via the Q&A panel. The chat panel should be used to ask technical support questions only. At the conclusion of the pre-recorded session of the information meeting, questions asked in the Q&A will be answered if necessary. These questions are not on the record. Next, the public hearing will begin. At the conclusion of the hearing, attendees are invited to provide their statements for the public record on either presentation. Please note that questions or comments sent in the Q&A during the public hearing will not be incorporated into the record. Substantial comments received will be addressed after the meeting as part of the NEPA, SECRA, and EDPL processes. Throughout the meeting, if you have any questions about Zoom webinar technology, please use the chat box to send a message to Kelsey Kahn, who is serving as our technical support this evening. You can also contact Kelsey Kahn at KKAHN@FHISTUDIO.com, or you can call her at 917-994-8255 with any Zoom webinar technology questions. Again, do not put your comments or questions in the chat, as they will not be included in the public record. If you are disconnected at any point during the meeting or are having bandwidth issues with your internet, there is an option to call into this meeting via telephone. You can use the toll-free number on your screen to access the meeting if you are disconnected, or joining by phone, as it's a simpler, better option for you. Call 646-558-8656, and when prompted, enter the webinar ID, which is 871-3114-7453. Prior to the public hearing session, information will be provided on how you can make your public comment. Okay, now that we have reviewed the technical instructions, I'd like to begin by introducing the project team, beginning with the representative from the Federal Railroad Administration, or FRA. And FRA is the lead federal agency for this project. Brendan Bratcher is an environmental protection specialist with the FRA, and he is the FRA's designated project manager. And now I'd like to introduce the representatives from the New York State Department of Transportation executive team, some of whom are in attendance with us for tonight's sessions. So in attendance this evening, we have Stephanie Winkelhock, who is the Deputy Chief Engineer, and Pat Barnes, who is the Regional Director for Region 1 of New York State DOT. We also have from New York State DOT's Communications Project team, Joe Morrissey, who's the Director of Public Information, Glenn Blaine, who's the Assistant Director of Communications, and Brian Vigiani, who's the Public Information Officer for Region 1. And from the project's technical team, we have from NYSDOT, Susan Andrews, PE, who is the Director of the Rail Projects Group, Mark Jakubiak, RLA, who is the Project Manager, Corrine Miller, who is the Real Estate Liaison for Region 1. And then from our consulting engineering team, we have Quentin Johnson, PE, who is the engineering consultant from Majeski and Masters Incorporated. And we have Tom Cole, who's the project manager, also from Majeski and Masters. And then we have Julie Cowing, AICP, who's an environmental consultant with AKRF Incorporated. And she's joined here this evening by her colleague, Jim Finnegan. And then you have several of us from FHI Studio who are working behind the scenes to support this project. Okay. So today's agenda begins with an informational presentation about the project, where the project team will provide background, the project goals and objectives. And then we'll follow with more information about the project, including alternatives considered and a summary of impacts. We will provide additional details about the project schedule and the next steps. After the informational presentation has concluded, we will answer any questions asked in the Q&A. We will then take a 10-minute break and then proceed with the formal public hearing. We will again go over how to submit your formal comments before receiving testimony and concluding the meeting. Okay, this public information meeting will provide information about the effects of the project included in the environmental assessment and provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the environmental assessment, including its conclusions about historic properties. The full environmental assessment is available on the New York State DOT website, and that address is https://www.dot.ny.gov/Livingston Ave Bridge. That's LIVINGSTONAVEBRIDGE. The environmental assessment was prepared in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, also known as SECRA, Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 4F of the U.S. Department of Transportation Act, and other related regulations. This project may require property acquisition by the New York State Department of Transportation, which would occur in accordance with the New York State Eminent Domain Procedure Law. Today's hearing will take place after the information meeting, and it's a requirement under that law. We would like to begin by providing information on how to comment on the environmental assessment, and these instructions will be repeated later in the presentation and are also available on the New York State DOT website. Comments will be accepted through June 15th, 2022. Comments via email may be sent to Livingston Ave Bridge, that's LIVINGSTONAVEBRIDGE @dot.ny.gov with the subject public comment. Comments will also be accepted through the project website at https://www.dot.ny.gov/Livingston Ave Bridge /contact CONTACT with the subject public comment. And comment via US mail may be sent to Livingston Avenue Bridge Project, New York State Department of Transportation, Office of Design, 50 Wolf Road, POD-24, Albany, New York, 12232. And we are now going to begin part one of tonight's meeting, which is the public information meeting. As a reminder, you may ask questions by the Q&A panel, and members of the project team will be monitoring the Q&A panel and will respond to questions as time allows. Please note these questions will not be made a part of the official comments for the environmental assessment. For technical support, please reach out to Kelsey Kahn via the chat panel. And a recording of tonight's session will be posted on the New York State DOT website. So we're now going to begin with a recording for this portion of the information meeting.
The Livingston Avenue Bridge spans the Hudson River, connecting the cities of Albany and Rensselaer, New York. As a part of the rail network, this project is located on the Empire Corridor. The Empire Corridor is one of 11 federally designated high-speed rail corridors in the United States. The corridor accommodates passenger rail service between New York City and Niagara Falls, with station stops in Poughkeepsie, Rhinecliff, Hudson, Rensselaer, Schenectady, Amsterdam, Utica, Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo. The Livingston Avenue Bridge is located on the Hudson Line section of the Empire Corridor. It's the only upstate passenger rail crossing of the Hudson River. The current service across the bridge includes 12 Amtrak passenger trains and roughly 2 to 6 freight trains, Canadian Pacific Railway and CSX, daily. The bridge is a critical link for passenger rail service, as no detour is available without creating substantial delays, upwards of 2.5 hours. The bridge has a movable swing span to allow ships to pass. This swing span opens about 400 times each year. The bridge is more than 100 years old, with the bridge piers built in 1865 and the bridge spans built in 1903. Due to its age, the existing Livingston Avenue Bridge is in a deteriorated state, and trains are limited to crossing one at a time at only 15 miles per hour. Also, the clearance for height and width do not meet modern standards, and the bridge does not meet current seismic design codes. This photo shows the existing bridge in the open position. The movable span has become unreliable and sticks in the open position. This causes delays to passenger rail service when the bridge cannot be closed in a timely manner. The goals for this project, which were used to guide development of the project, relate to addressing substandard conditions and improving operations for rail and river traffic. As shown on the slide, the 3 goals are to, number 1, improve passenger rail operations, service reliability, and operational flexibility. Number 2, improve the load capacity of the corridor and remove existing structural operational limitations. And number 3, minimize conflicts with ship traffic. For each of the 3 project goals, FRA and New York State DOT also established objectives that help guide how the project should meet the goals. For Goal 1, the objectives describe the specific improvements that should occur to rail operations across the bridge, including allowing use of the 2-track bridge by 2 trains at the same time, which cannot occur today due to its condition, and increasing train speeds across the bridge. For Goal 2, the objectives relate primarily to design criteria that should be met for rail operations on the bridge, including objectives related to the loads that the bridge should support, the distance between the tracks, and the vertical clearance for trains on the bridge. For Goal 3, objectives relate to minimizing impacts to and improving operations for boats in the Hudson River that pass beneath the bridge. These include providing at least the same clearances as the existing bridge and minimizing delays to boats during construction and after completion of the new bridge. This project will provide additional connections to regional trail systems by providing a new pedestrian bicycle crossing over the Hudson River, a new connection for which we recognize there is keen community interest. The project will enhance connections for the Mohawk-Hudson Bike Hike Trail, the Albany Skyway, the Empire State Trail, and the future Rensselaer Riverfront Trail, which is being progressed by the City of Rensselaer under a separate project as part of their master plan. We will go over more information about the project's shared use path in subsequent slides. The environmental review process that must be followed for the project, as well as the historic preservation laws that apply to the project, require that New York State DOT and FRA consider a range of alternatives in developing the project. This allows them to identify the approach for addressing the project need and goals and objectives that results in the smallest impact to the environment and to historic properties. There were several alternatives evaluated by New York State DOT and the FRA. They include the no action alternative, which provides a baseline comparison for the other alternatives and represents conditions if no work was undertaken. A permanent detour using alternate routes was considered, but resulted in significant changes to the Empire Corridor route and bypassed major stations, including Rensselaer and Schenectady. Rehabilitating the existing bridge, including minimal repairs, rehabilitating to accommodate freight and passenger rail, and rehabilitation for passenger trains only. Replacing the existing bridge with a new bridge using existing alignment, on new alignment, on an adjacent alignment to the north of the existing bridge, and on an adjacent alignment to the south of the existing bridge. After this analysis, which is described in the environmental assessment, New York State DOT and FRA determined that only the replacement on adjacent alignment alternatives would meet the project purpose, need, goals, and objectives. There are 2 replacement on adjacent alignment alternatives that were further evaluated in the environmental assessment. Alternative 1, as shown on the left, would construct a new bridge to the north of the existing bridge, and Alternative 2, shown on the right, would construct a new bridge to the south of the existing bridge. While the 2 replacement alternatives have different alignments, a number of design features are included in both alternatives. This includes the construction of a shared use path for pedestrians and bicyclists across the new bridge, addressing the existing bridge deficiencies, providing a 100-year design life for the new bridge, using a lift span instead of a swing span, improving track geometry, and providing 14 feet track centers, which is the minimum spacing required between the tracks on the new bridge. Both alternatives also include modifications to the railroad bridges over Water Street and Center Street in Albany to allow the tracks on these bridges to connect to the new track alignment of the replacement bridge. Both alternatives include the same improvements related to the navigational channel in the Hudson River, consisting of a 190 feet wide channel opening, 25 feet vertical clearance within the navigation channel under the fixed new bridge spans, and 60 feet of vertical clearance when the bridge is raised for ship traffic. This would match the vertical clearance at the upstream and downstream bridges over the Hudson River. Both alternatives would require temporary easements on both riverbanks during construction for contractor access to the bridge construction site. The north alignment, Alternative 1, is located approximately 200 feet north of the existing bridge on the Rensselaer side, and skews closer to the existing bridge on the Albany side. The majority of the structure and approach work could be constructed off-site for this alternative. However, this alignment requires wider piers due to its skewed alignment across the Hudson River. The north alignment requires more approach work along the railroad tracks and more property acquisition along the north approach track in Rensselaer. The estimated cost for the north alignment, Alternative 1, is $430 million in 2024 dollars. For Alternative 2, the south alignment, the new bridge would be located approximately 60 feet to the south of the existing bridge. Since the new bridge for this alignment would be perpendicular to the Hudson River, all piers could be constructed parallel to river flow, making them narrower than the piers required for the north alignment. The south alignment would provide for superior access and connections to adjacent shared use paths and trails, including the Albany Skyway, the Mohawk-Hudson Bike Hike Trail, and other elements of the Empire State Trail. The estimated cost of the south alignment, Alternative 2, is $400 million in 2024 dollars. Based on the analysis in the environmental assessment, as well as operational and engineering considerations, Alternative 2 has been identified as the preferred alternative. The next few slides will discuss this alternative in more detail. This image shows an illustration of the profile view of the proposed new bridge. The proposed bridge would be approximately 1,370 feet long and have multiple spans. Because of improved loading, it would remove the current bridge speed limitations of 15 miles per hour for passenger trains. Train speeds would be governed by the track geometry on either side of the bridge, with speeds up to 30 miles per hour achievable for traveling east into Rensselaer, and speeds up to 40 miles per hour for traveling west. In addition, the bridge could be used by 2 trains at the same time, which is not possible today due to its condition. The new structure would also include a lift span for ship traffic, shown near the center of the diagram where the higher towers are located. The new lift span would be able to open and close more reliably than the existing bridge, improving bridge operation and coordination, with fewer delays between ship and train traffic. This illustration shows the proposed cross-section of the proposed new bridge. It is wider than the existing bridge, with 2 tracks and a shared-use pedestrian and bicycle path physically separated from the train traffic. The proposed bridge would also support heavier freight loads. The taller and wider cross-section will meet current railroad design standards and accommodate larger rail cars. This figure shows a view looking down from above the proposed bridge. The new track alignments are shown in red and the shared-use path in green. On the Albany side, the rail bridges over Water and Center Streets will be rehabilitated to accommodate track alignments for the new Livingston Avenue Bridge. On the Rensselaer side, the Y tracks will be realigned to match the new Livingston Avenue Bridge alignment and facilitate train turning movements. This slide shows the existing bridge profile as the top figure, and the proposed bridge profile on the bottom. Both of these images are looking north, with Albany on the left and Rensselaer on the right. The images show that for the proposed bridge, the movable span is located more toward the center of the Hudson River. This slide shows a map of the connections of the proposed shared use path on the new bridge to the existing and planned trail systems in the surrounding area. The path on the new bridge would connect the Albany Skyway on the Albany side to the east side of the river, where the city of Rensselaer is currently developing a multi-use trail along the waterfront. And now let's look at some renderings of what the proposed bridge will look like when the project is complete. This first rendering shows a bird's eye view of the proposed bridge over the Hudson River from the Albany side looking north. You can see the new Albany Skyway on the left. This next rendering shows a close-up of the movable span for the proposed bridge in the raised position to allow for ship passage. And finally, this rendering shows the proposed bridge from the Rensselaer side looking toward Albany. The shared use path can be seen diverging to the south from the bridge to connect with the proposed riverfront trail. The environmental assessment for the project was prepared in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act, as well as related laws and regulations. It includes an evaluation of the potential permanent impacts of the project during operation and temporary impacts during construction. It evaluates a full range of environmental topics, covering issues related to the human and built environment, such as land use, community character, social and economic conditions, and historic resources and visual considerations. It also includes an evaluation of the project's effects on the natural environment, including terrestrial resources and water resources. The EA evaluates the project's potential effects on historic resources to comply with NEPA, and also with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. There are 3 historic properties within the study area for the project, including the bridge itself and 2 additional properties on the Albany side of the river, 2 bridges and an adjacent warehouse structure with a rail spur. All of these properties have been determined to be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. The evaluation of historic resources was conducted in consultation with the New York State Historic Preservation Office and other consulting parties as part of the Section 106 process. The consultation determined that removal of the Livingston Avenue Bridge for this project would constitute an adverse effect to historic properties. Mitigation for this effect is being developed through Section 106 consultation. There will be no adverse effect on the 2 other historic properties in the study area, the Central Warehouse and Center Street Railroad Spur, and the Albany Railroad Viaduct. To mitigate the adverse effect on the National Register eligible Livingston Avenue Bridge, a Memorandum of Agreement, MOA, among Federal Railroad Administration, New York State DOT, and New York State Historic Preservation Office was developed in accordance with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. The proposed mitigation includes documentation of the bridge following Historic American Engineering Record, HAER standards, interpretive signs related to the history of the bridge along public walkways nearby, use of truss spans for the replacement bridge, and an active search for a new owner of the existing Livingston Avenue Bridge for adaptive reuse or partial reuse at a new location. It should be noted that no new owner has been identified at this time. The mitigation would also include development of a construction protection plan to avoid accidental damage to nearby historic properties during construction. A draft MOA is included in the EA. It will be finalized following review of any public comments on the project and its effect on historic resources that are received during the public comment period on the EA. The EA documents the project's expected impacts on water resources and ecology. The analysis explores effects from both construction and the proposed new permanent structure. The EA identifies several potential effects from the new bridge, including effects on the floodplain, effects of the bridge piers on the bottom of the river and in a wetland area, and effects due to construction activities on aquatic vegetation. The evaluation was prepared in coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Marine Fisheries Service, in compliance with the Endangered Species Act and other related laws and regulations. Construction crews will implement mitigation measures during construction to avoid adverse effects on water resources and ecology. These will be finalized in consultation with the U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and New York State Department of Environmental Conservation as part of the permitting process for the bridge. Based on completed consultation with the National Marine Fisheries Service, construction crews will comply with a number of requirements to limit adverse effects on protected species. These will include limits to when construction activities can occur in the water and when tree clearing can occur. The EA also evaluates the potential for other impacts during construction and identifies measures to avoid adverse effects to neighbors and construction workers. These include using best management practices to limit dust at the construction site, limiting nighttime construction work and using barriers to block transmission of noise, as well as further environmental investigation and management to avoid exposure to contaminated materials, including on land and in the river. The preferred alternative proposes some acquisitions of private property for the new track alignment. These acquisitions are necessitated by the new rail alignments to tie into the new bridge location and to construct the new shared use path. New York State DOT will discuss the real estate acquisition process further during the public hearing following this NEPA information session. The next step after the NEPA public comment period will be for the Federal Railroad Administration to make their environmental determination based on the analysis presented in the environmental assessment and a review of the comments received. We expect the FRA to make this determination later this fall. A public hearing after this NEPA information session will review the real estate process. Construction will begin at the end of 2023 and is anticipated to be complete at the end of 2026. Comments on the environmental assessment will be accepted through June 15, 2022. Comments will be accepted by email at livingstonavbridge@dot.ny.gov. Please include the subject Public Comment, as well as through the project website, www.dot.ny.gov/livingstonavbridge/contact. Comment via U.S. mail should be sent to Livingston Avenue Bridge Project, New York State Department of Transportation, Office of Design, 50 Wolf Road, POD-24, Albany, New York, 12232.
Okay, well, that concludes the pre-recorded portion of the information meeting. And we have reviewed the questions entered in the Q&A, and our registrar has provided answers to those questions. So that is actually going to end the information meeting for the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. And we will now take a 10-minute break, and a public hearing addressing the state's eminent domain procedures law will start at 6:38. And then formal comments for both the National Environmental Policy Act and the eminent domain law will follow that presentation. So we have a 10-minute break. We're going to then have a video, and then we're going to have the public comment portion. So we'll see you back in 10. Okay, well, welcome back. And it's now time to begin the hearing for the state's eminent domain procedure. And following the hearing, all are invited to provide their verbal comments. The comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will be counting that. Speakers will be muted if they use inappropriate language. Substantive comments will be responded to as part of the NEPA, SECRA, and EDPL processes. And this hearing is being recorded, and the official transcript of the hearing will become part of the project record. And so before we begin the public comment portion, we're going to show you another video about the EDPL.
The New York State Department of Transportation, New York State DOT, in cooperation with the Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, published an environmental assessment for the project on May 9, 2022. The project has been advanced in accordance with the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, codified as Title 40, Code of Federal Regulations, Parts 1500 to 1508. FRA's environmental regulations at 23 CFR, Parts 771 and 774, the New York State DOT Procedures for Implementation of the State Environmental Quality Review Act at 17 New York Codes, Rules, and Regulations, Part 15, and in accordance with the provision of Article 2 of the New York State Eminent Domain Procedure Law, EDPL. The publication of the environmental assessment began the public comment period on the document, which will extend until 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on June 15, 2022. This public hearing is being conducted to obtain comments on the project's environmental assessment and the right-of-way acquisition process. The environmental assessment is available for review at this hearing on the project's website, www.dot.ny.gov/Livingston Ave Bridge, and at the New York State DOT main office, 50 Wolf Road, Albany, New York, 12332, and at the Albany City Hall and the Rensselaer City Hall. The environmental assessment documents compliance with other applicable federal, New York State, and local environmental laws and regulations, including Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, the conformity requirements of the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899, Section 4F of the Department of Transportation Act of 1966, Section 4F, the Endangered Species Act, Executive Order 11988, and U.S. Department of Transportation Order 5650.2 on floodplain management, Executive Order 11990 on protection of wetlands, the Magnuson-Stevens Act related to essential fish habitat, the Coastal Zone Management Act, and Executive Order 12898 on environmental justice. It describes the project, the consideration of social, economic, and environmental effects that would result from implementation of the project, and measures to mitigate adverse effects. This hearing provides the public an opportunity to make formal statements of positions before any final project decisions are made. The agencies will review and consider public comments submitted by the comment deadline. Substantial comments received will be addressed after the meeting as part of the NEPA and EDPL processes. The determinations and findings for the public hearing will be published within 90 days of the hearing date. This presentation will cover materials specific to the project as it relates to the eminent domain procedure law. We will discuss the hearing purpose and the project location, goals, description, and impacts. Then we will discuss the right-of-way acquisition process and how to submit comments. During the development of the project alternatives for the environmental analysis, several properties were identified that may be required for the construction of the preferred alternative. Property acquisition by New York State DOT would occur in accordance with the New York State Eminent Domain Procedure Law. Today's hearing is a requirement under this law. The Livingston Avenue Bridge is located in the cities of Albany and Rensselaer, New York, and spans the Hudson River. As a part of the rail network, this project is located on the Hudson Line section of the Empire Corridor. The current service across the bridge includes 12 Amtrak passenger trains and roughly 2 to 6 freight trains, Canadian Pacific Railway and CSX daily. The bridge is a critical link for passenger rail service, as no detour is available without creating substantial delays, upwards of 2.5 hours. The The bridge has a movable swing span to allow larger ships to pass and opens about 400 times each year. This mechanism has become unreliable and sticks in the open position, causing delays to passenger rail service when the bridge cannot be closed in a timely manner. This bridge is more than 100 years old, with the bridge piers built in 1865 and the bridge spans built in 1903. Due to its age, it is in a deteriorated state, and trains are limited to crossing one at a time at only 15 miles per hour. Also, the clearances for height and width do not meet modern standards, and the bridge does not meet current seismic design codes. The goals for this project relate to addressing substandard conditions and improving operations for rail and river traffic. As shown on the slide, the three goals are to, number 1, improve passenger rail operations, service reliability, and operational flexibility. Number 2, improve the load capacity of the corridor and remove existing structural operational limitations. And number 3, minimize conflicts with ship traffic. The project goals were used to develop the alternatives evaluated in the environmental assessment. The environmental assessment for the project was prepared in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act, as well as related laws and regulations. It includes an evaluation of the potential permanent impacts of the project during operation and temporary impacts during construction. It evaluates a full range of environmental topics, covering issues related to the human and built environment, such as land use, community character, social and economic conditions, and historic resources and visual considerations. It also includes an evaluation of the project's effects on the natural environment, including terrestrial resources and water resources. As previously discussed, this document is available to the public for review and comment. Based on the analysis in the environmental assessment, as well as operational and engineering considerations, the preferred alternative, a full replacement approximately 60 feet to the south of the existing bridge, was identified. Shown in the profile at the bottom of the slide, a lift span is proposed to accommodate ships instead of a swing span. It will allow for a 60-foot vertical clearance when raised, which matches the clearances at upstream and downstream bridges, and will be centrally located in the river channel. Also proposed is a shared-use path for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross the Hudson River, connecting local and regional trail networks in Albany and Rensselaer. The construction costs for the proposed bridge are estimated at $400 million. This figure shows a view looking down from above the proposed bridge. The new track alignments are shown in red and the shared-use path in green. On the Albany side, the rail bridges over Water and Center Streets will be rehabilitated to accommodate track alignments for the new Livingston Avenue Bridge. On the Rensselaer side, the Y tracks will be realigned to match the new Livingston Avenue Bridge alignment and facilitate train turning movements. These new alignments off the bridge and the new bridge structure will support increased speeds for passenger trains. Eastbound passenger trains heading toward Rensselaer will have a maximum speed of 30 miles per hour, and westbound passenger trains heading toward Albany will have a maximum speed of 40 miles per hour. In addition to higher speeds, the new bridge typical section will support 2 trains using the structure at the same time, which is not possible today. The cross-section shows updated vertical and horizontal train clearances and shows how the new shared-use path will be accommodated across the bridge. The next few slides will discuss the proposed right-of-way impacts of the preferred alternative on both the Albany and Rensselaer sides of the river. These acquisitions are necessitated by the new rail alignments to tie into the new bridge location and to construct the new shared-use path. Property acquisitions would occur in accordance with the eminent domain procedures law, a process that will be discussed at the end of this presentation. This proposed acquisition area is on the Rensselaer side of the river just north of the bridge, where the new tracks will tie into the lines running north. It includes one larger parcel owned by First Rensselaer Corporation that measures 1.14 acres. There are also 5 smaller parcels owned by Pulcinello Realty Corporation that total 0.27 acres in size. South of the bridge on the Rensselaer side, there is a triangular-shaped property owned by New York Central, or CSX, where the shared-use path will diverge from bridge alignment and turn south. This property may need to be acquired as part of the project. After the shared-use path turns south, It will gradually slope downward to connect with the proposed Rensselaer Riverfront Trail. The highlighted area is a permanent easement that may need to be acquired from Amtrak. On the Albany side of the river, there are 3 parcels that will no longer be needed for railroad use. These have the potential to be acquired to facilitate future access to the tracks. After properties have been identified during the design process, the first step in the right-of-way acquisition process is sending out an introductory letter and a packet with a preliminary copy of the acquisition maps. A New York State DOT representative will then set up an appointment by phone or in person to explain the acquisition process and the project in more detail. The next step is the determination of compensation. New York State DOT's appraisal unit will send out a letter providing the property owners the opportunity to accompany the appraiser on their inspection of the property. The appraisal will establish fair market value for the subject lands. Once established, the offer of just compensation will be made. The offer may be made by mail or in person. The offer will include an agreement for the owner to review and sign. A second contact will be made by New York State DOT within 2 weeks of the offer to answer any questions the owner may have or address any concerns. Once contact has been made with the property owner, the state proceeds to acquire title to the area depicted on the acquisition map by filing a copy of the map with the county clerks. Notice of this filing will be sent to the property owner via certified mail. Once an agreement and all required closing papers have been signed and have completed legal review, payment will be issued by the state comptroller within approximately 8 weeks. The next steps after the public hearing and the public comment period have ended will be for the Federal Railroad Administration to make their environmental determination. This will be based on the analysis presented in the environmental assessment and a review of the comments received. We expect the FRA to make this determination later this fall. Real estate acquisitions will follow in the winter of 2022 and into early 2023. Construction will begin at the end of 2023 and is anticipated to be complete at the end of 2026. I will now review how to comment on the environmental assessment. Comments will be accepted through June 15, 2022. Comments via email may be sent to livingstonavbridge@dot.ny.gov. Subject public comment. Comment through the project website, www.dot.ny.gov/livingstonavbridge/contact. Subject public comment. Comment via U.S. mail. Livingston Avenue Bridge Project, New York State Department of Transportation, Office of Design, 50 Wolf Road, POD-24, Albany, New York, 12232.
Okay, we will now begin the public comment portion of tonight's meeting, and I just have a few more instructions and then we'll get to the heart of the matter. My role as hearing moderator is to provide members of the public an opportunity to provide comments in an organized, fair, professional, and orderly manner. Agency representatives will not be answering questions or responding to comments. Responses to substantive comments will be addressed as part of the NEPA, SECRA, and EDPL processes. As a reminder, if you have questions about Zoom webinar technology, please use the chat box to send a message to Kelsey Kahn, who is serving as our technical support this evening. You can also contact Kelsey at kKahn, that's KKAHN, @fhistudio.com, or you can call her at 917-994-8255 with any Zoom webinar technology questions. Again, do not put your comments in the chat as they will not be included in the project record. If you are disconnected at any point during this meeting or are having bandwidth issues with your internet, there is an option to call into the meeting via phone. You can use the toll-free number on your screen to access the meeting if you are disconnected, or if joining via phone is simply a better option for you. Call 646-558-8656 when prompted, enter the webinar ID, which is 871-3114-7453. If you would like to make, go to our, there you go, we're on the right slide. Okay, if you would like to make a public statement, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen, or press *9 on your phone to alert the host that you would like to comment. If you're not seeing the raise hand in your Zoom toolbar, you may need to click on participants in your Zoom toolbar. The button will then show up at the bottom of the window in the participants pane. On mobile devices, you may need to click the 3 dots to access more features. When you are called on to speak, the host will give you permission to unmute yourself so all participants can hear you. If you log on by computer or the Zoom app, you will receive a notification to unmute. Speaker icons are located in the top left of Android and iOS devices. Please click the unmute button before you begin speaking. If you are dialing in via phone, when the moderator calls on you to speak, press *6 to unmute. Press *6 again to mute when you are done speaking. A stenographer will record the proceedings of this meeting verbatim, and a written transcript will be prepared. Please state and spell your name and identify any organization you represent. To ensure all are heard, comments will be limited to 3 minutes after introductions. There will be a countdown clock on the screen, and I will provide a verbal warning when 30 seconds remain. At this time, we will hear from those who wish to make oral statements. I remind you that if you would like to comment, please use the raise hand function in Zoom or press *9 if participating by phone. In accordance with New York State DOT policy, elected and appointed officials will be given the first opportunity to speak, and we'll give them a few more minutes of time to speak. Others will be called to make their statements in the order they are listed in the queue, and you'll see that queue on the screen. I will call 2 names at a time so you are prepared when it is your turn to speak. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. All right, so let's get started, and we'll see on the screen the list of speakers. So our first speaker is Mayor Mike Stamel from the city of Rensselaer, followed by Mayor Kathy Chien from the city of Albany. So Mayor Stamel, if you will please unmute yourself, and we look forward to your statement.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Katura Vix, the Director of Planning from the City of Rensselaer, speaking on behalf of Mayor Stamel.
Welcome, thank you.
Yep, so
excuse me, if you wouldn't mind, please stating and spelling your first and last name for the record, please.
Oh, sorry, Katura Vix, Ketura, last name Vix, Vics, representing the City of Rensselaer on behalf of Mayor Stamel.
Thank you.
Yep. So the City of Rensselaer would like to thank the New York State Department of Transportation for continuing to coordinate with the city on the Livingston Avenue Bridge Replacement Project. As noted in the Environmental Assessment, or EA, and discussed as part of our ongoing meetings, although the bridge replacement project will have impacts to our Rensselaer Riverfront Multi-Use Trail Project, PIN 1760.84, which is currently under design and right-of-way incidentals and acquisitions. With careful coordination, the project could also be a tremendous benefit to the city. Please accept the following comments as part of the record. Regarding the executive summary, the city is pleased to acknowledge the department's commitment to the pedestrian and bicycle connections facilitated by this project. The city wholeheartedly supports the inclusion of the multi-use path alongside the new bridge, and also the scenic overlooks at the junctions with the lift span for instances when the connection must be lifted. In addition, the city supports the department's designation of alternate 2 as the preferred alternative. Regarding the project purpose and need, the City of Rensselaer would like to suggest consideration be given to formalizing the reestablishment of the pedestrian and bicycle connection between the City of Rensselaer and the City of Albany as an objective of this project. Historically, the Livingston Avenue Bridge has provided this connection, but it has been lost through time with lack of proper maintenance. The city cannot stress enough how important this vital non-motorized link between these 2 cities is to the success of the project. Regarding draft section 106 of the MOA, or Memorandum of Agreement, the city is supportive of the interpretive sign and agrees to take over the maintenance responsibility for it. We would like to suggest that the location be designed into the area where the multi-use path from the bridge ties into the Rensselaer Riverfront Trail, as this is envisioned to be a public gathering space for years to come. Regarding section 3.4, the city would like to suggest that the no action alternative identify the continued lack of pedestrian and bicycle accessibility identified as a negative impact for that alternative. Regarding section 3.5.5, since the city is coordinating with the New York State DOT and agreeing to delay the completion of the Rensselaer Riverfront Trail until after the completion of the Livingston Avenue Bridge project, the city would like to see the EA formally include the completion of the trail through the project's limits from DeLate's Landing to Tracy Street as part of the construction, as the contractor will have disturbed the majority of this area and would be mobilized to easily complete this minor construction as part of the restoration of the area. It would be a minor addition to the overall bridge project. Building the trail at the conclusion of the bridge project would also help keep pedestrians and cyclists from accessing the construction area should the city continue with current plans to extend the existing trail towards the bridge. Regarding section 4.2.3.1.2, the city suggests the EA acknowledge that although providing a staging area on the Rensselaer side of the river will delay completion of the Rensselaer Riverfront Trail for several years, it will be beneficial to maintain the existing recreational activities at the Corning Preserve on the Albany side and will eventually provide a long-term benefit on the Rensselaer side through the completion of the trail through project limits. Regarding section 4.2.5, the city would like to see acknowledgement the New York State DOT intends to secure a permanent easement or use and occupancy permit for the Rensselaer Riverfront Trail through the lands occupied by the Livingston Avenue Bridge as part of this project. In addition, the city would like to see acknowledgement of any required trail canopy incorporated into the bridge design and construction as part of the project. And finally, regarding section 4.15.5.1, the city acknowledges the width of the multi-use path on the bridge is 12 feet, but would like to note that the Rensselaer Riverfront Trail is and will continue to be 10 feet wide. Therefore, the department may want to maintain the 12-foot width of the connector trail rather than widen it out to 14 feet on the Rensselaer side.
And you have 30 seconds.
With this,
Please.
thank you. Coordination and mitigation in place, the city would like to offer our full support to the project, as this coordination would eliminate any permanent negative environmental effects in the city of Rensselaer. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to partner on this exciting once-in-a-lifetime project and look forward to its successful completion. On behalf of Mayor Stamel and the city of Rensselaer, thank you.
Thank you. 3 seconds to spare. Very good. Thank you so much. So our next speaker is Mayor Chien of the city of Albany, followed by New York State Assembly member Patricia Fahey. So Mayor Chien, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Mayor Chien, you may need to unmute yourself on your end.
It does not appear that the Mayor Chien is in the audience right now.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, so we'll circle back. We'll leave the mayor on the list in case she joins us. So our next speaker will be New York State Assembly member Patricia Fahey, followed by Martin Daly. So Assembly member Fahey, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
It also appears that we do not have Assembly member Fahey at
Okay.
this time.
Thank you. Again, we'll leave them on the list and they might be able to rejoin us. So our next speaker is Martin Daly, followed by Ivan Vamos. So Martin Daly, I know you're here because I've seen some of your chats. So if you wouldn't please state and spell your first and last name for us and any affiliation, and then we'll begin the timing, and you should be able to unmute yourself now. Martin Daly, are you with us?
Hello?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Okay, sorry, some problems with my audio here. Thank you. I'll make my comments brief. My first thought is I want to recognize the department.
But before you do, I'd like you to please state your.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Martin Daly, MartinDaley. Lead organizer for the Livingston Avenue Bridge Coalition, which is a very grassroots coalition of more than 50 community organizations that have been advocating for the past 10 years for the inclusion of the walkway to be added to the replacement Livingston Avenue Bridge. My first comment is I want to thank and commend the department for their vision for including this walkway in the bridge. It has been several decades since this bridge has provided the opportunity for not only residents in the city of Albany, but also from the city of Rensselaer and throughout the region to be able to use this as a crossing point. I think this is an important opportunity to build a connection in New York State's Empire State Trail, which crisscrosses the state and is a very significant draw for tourism for not only our region, but our nation and the world. So I'm excited that this could provide that opportunity. And I wish that, I hope that the department acknowledges that in the environmental impact analysis. My comments are, I'd like the impact analysis to consider, to communicate when the bridge will be, the pathway will be open as far as hours of operation will be open all season. I think those are important questions as to the value of that resource. My second comment is that in the site plan and in the renderings, there are conflicting, I'll say renderings, for lack of a better term, on where the walkway will connect on the western side of the bridge. Some of the renderings have the walkway connecting into the skyway, and some of the renderings have the walkway on a separated berm curving back into the waterfront trail. Believe that the better connection would be that the walkway connect directly into the skyway. That would optimize the use of the skyway as a connection onto the bridge and eliminate the necessity for perhaps a costly and burdensome walkway that may not be accessible by people accessing the trail from the bridge. So I would strongly encourage the department to look at the alternative that connects the bridge to the skyway. But again, I do want to underscore that residents of Albany County and Rensselaer County and both the city of Albany and city of Rensselaer, along with both those cities and counties leadership, have been steadfast in their support for the walkway. And I'm very excited to see this project continue to advance. And I cannot overstate how pleased I am that New York State has carried this vision forward. So a big pat on the back to everyone involved in advancing this project with the walkway. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, terrific. So our next speaker is Ivan Vamos, followed by Bruce Becker. So Ivan, again, you should be able to unmute yourself now, and I'll ask you to state and spell your first and last name and tell us your affiliation, and then we'll begin the timer.
Thank you. My first name is Ivan, I-V-A-N. Second name is Vamos, V-A-M-O-S. I represent the New York State Bicycle Coalition, a statewide organization of bicyclists and bicycle organizations. And we have had the opening of a multi-purpose path across the Livingston Avenue Bridge as a primary goal since the NYBC was first formed 30 years ago. Other projects had been such as the current Mario Cuomo Bridge, which does now have a bicycle pedestrian route. This is a needed route, not only connecting the two cities, Albany and Rensselaer, but also because the current connection does not meet standards for safe bicycling, the current connection being on the Dunn Memorial Bridge. It also does not meet ADA standards for people using wheelchairs. So this would be the only safe connection when it's established, and I hope that is soon. We support Alternative 2, and we agree with Martin Daly that connection to the Skyway would make the connection more easily used, not only for getting to the trails, but getting to Albany itself. I had been a bicycle commuter in the Albany area for about 40 years, and the chance of getting across the river and a chance of getting into Albany Center, for example, to going to from an office in Albany to the railroad station would be enhanced greatly by a connection directly to the Skyway. It may also save a little bit of money in construction. Thank you. That's the end of my suggestions.
Thank you very much. So much. So next on our list is Bruce Becker, followed by Johan Moore. So Bruce Becker, you should be able to unmute yourself now, and I'll ask you to state and spell your first and last name and tell us your affiliation.
Thank you. First name Bruce, B-R-U-C-E. Last name Becker, B-E-C-K-E-R. I'm immediate past president of the Empire State Passengers Association. And in that role, I have helped advocate for improved passenger rail service across New York State for over 25 years, and I currently reside in the Buffalo area and use Amtrak service east to Albany, New York City frequently. In addition, I've had the opportunity to ride over the Hudson River on trains for 64 years on both the previous Maiden Lane Bridge and now on the Livingston Avenue Bridge. The need for a bridge replacement is clear. Certainly the age of the Livingston Avenue Bridge, prone for a breakdown to both train traffic and marine traffic, demonstrates the need for that. In addition, a new modern bridge will allow for higher speeds and will allow for additional service to be instituted in the future to points west and north of Albany, which is critical for the movement of passengers into the future. Our organization fully supports the preferred alternative, the number 2 south of the current bridge option. And I want to conclude by thanking Governor Hochul for her leadership and for the entire staff, including Commissioner Dominguez at New York State DOT, for advancing this project to this point. We look forward to partnering with the department as the bridge project continues, and certainly look forward to riding across the new bridge as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Johan Moore, followed by Jacob Adams. So Johan Moore, you should be able to unmute yourself. And again, I'll ask you to state and spell your first and last name and tell us your affiliation, and then we'll start the clock.
My name is Johan Moore, J-O-H-A-N-N, last name M-O-O-R-E. I'm a member of Rail Passengers Association. I'm also a Miami Beach Commissioner's appointee to the Miami Beach Sustainability Committee, and I'm a seasonal resident, Miami Beach and the Mid-Hudson Valley. I want to support this project, and I want to point out that no fewer than 4 interstate and or interprovincial international rail lines go across this bridge, including a route that we're much looking forward to the extension of, namely to Burlington from Rutland. We also frequently travel to the West Coast via the Empire Builder, and obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, we prefer to go via the Lakeshore Limited. This project will enable better, faster service, and I was so taken by the specific reference to the alignment being appropriate for future high-speed service. Imagine being able to walk or bike from downtown Albany across the bridge to the train station and getting on a high-speed train. This is an excellent project, and I want to urge everyone to support it. My support is not dependent on the preferred alignment, but option 2 sounds quite well thought through. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay. Our next speaker is Jacob Adams, followed by Ashley Mole. So Jacob Adams, you should be able to unmute yourself. And again, please state and spell your first and last name and your affiliation, and we will start the timer.
So hi, my name is Jacob Adams. I'm also a member of.
And I'm going to have to spell
sorry, Jacob Adams, J-A-C-O-B, B as in boy, A, D as in David, A, M as in Mary, S as in Sam.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Jacob Adams. I live in Rochester, New York. I also want to speak to the train part of this. I'm a member of the Rail Passenger Association and the Empire State Passenger Association, but I do not speak on behalf of them. I speak as a private individual. I also want to thank the DOT and New York government for advancing this project, which is a critical link, again, not only for cross-state services, but also services from Boston. And as someone who grew up in Chicago and frequently takes the Lakeshore Limited, it's critical link to Chicago as well, because it's unlikely if the service to if the train cannot continue to Boston or New York City, that they would continue the train and more likely suspend the train, Amtrak that is. I also want to make a friendly amendment. Actually, pre-pandemic, there were 2 international routes that crossed the bridge, one to the Adirondack to Montreal, as well as the Toronto train, the Maple Leaf, as well as the Lakeshore Limited to Chicago or in Boston and New York City. I want to thank the government for planning not only to replace this clearly outdated bridge, but to actually improve the capacity, to improve speed, even if it doesn't really improve running time. It will certainly improve dependability, which is very important. As someone who frequently took the corridor in the Lakeshore Limited, there are enough other delays, so it's good to get rid of another choke point. So thank you again for allowing me to speak, and thank you for advancing this project.
Thank you. Okay, so our next speaker is Ashley Mould, followed by Charles Lamino. Ashley Mould, you should be able to unmute yourself. And again, I'll ask you to spell your first and last name for us and tell us your affiliation.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. This is Ashley Moll. My name is spelled ASHLEYMOHL. And I am the Vice President of Capitalized Albany Corporation. Capitalized Albany is the city's economic development entity for the city of Albany. I will keep my comments tonight brief, but I wanted to express our full support of this important project and thank the department for moving forward with this project, which creates a critical multimodal connection from Albany to Rensselaer, amplifying the impact of recent transformational projects through a direct connection to the Albany Skyway. So with that, I wanted to echo the sentiments of the earlier statements from Martin Daly and another commenter I missed the name of, that the direct connection to the Skyway would be the preferred alternative or preferred option on the design. So we would strongly encourage that alternative if possible. In any event, it's great to see this wonderful project moving forward, and thank you for the opportunity to share our support of it, and again for advancing this project. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Charles Lamino, and then we'll check in again with the mayor and with the assembly member. But Charles Lamino, if you're here, you should be able to unmute yourself now. And again, I'll ask you to spell your first and last name for us and your affiliation.
Hi, my name is Charles Lamino, spelled CHARLES, LOM as in Mary, IN as in Nancy, O the third. I am just a citizen of Albany County who finds it really important that we start investing in modes of transportation that aren't just motor vehicles. And I think the improvement of rail infrastructure and the inclusion of the pedestrian infrastructure, this project is a great step in the right direction for Albany and New York State. These are two forms of transportation that we should really be investing more time and money on. The current walkway on the Dove Memorial Bridge does not meet ADA standards, as stated by Ivan from the Albany Biking Coalition, and it's not really a worthy link to take people over New York's longest river to its state capital on the Empire State Trail. I also think the improved rail service would be an excellent asset to our public transportation. So just once again, as a citizen of Albany County, I just wholeheartedly support alternative number 2 to this project as shown in today's hearing.
Thank you. So So we're going to check back in. If Mayor Chien or a representative of the mayor's office is with us, please use the raise hand. You'll see at the bottom of your Zoom bar to let us know that you're here. Similarly, if the assembly member is here or her representative is here, let us know. And otherwise, if we don't hear from you, we will assume that you have not joined us this evening, and we'll look forward to the submission of comments through the other means that we've stated earlier in the meeting. And it looks like we do not have any more speakers right now. We will be here until 8 p.m. That's when this hearing is concluding. We have a speaker coming up. All right, great. In real time, you're watching. So we now have Ed Brennan on our list to speak. So Ed Brennan, you should be able to unmute yourself now. And as usual, I'll ask you to state and spell your first and last name for us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Ed Brennan, E-D, Ed Brennan, B-R-E-N-N-A-N. I'm president of the Albany Bicycle Coalition. I just want to first just echo and thank everybody for finally getting this underway and including the bicycle pedestrian trail. I personally, I can't speak for the whole ABC organization yet, but I personally would like to see the connection to the Skyway. I do want to say that I agree. The Dunn Memorial, it's unsafe and it's just terrible aesthetically. And I want to just say that I hope that aesthetically we don't turn out a bicycle pedestrian trail across this bridge that looks like the pathway across the Dunn Memorial with the chain link fencing along the side. I realize that that chain link fencing is there for security purposes, but I hope that that in an investment or if you find some way to do that, that it contributes to the environment and the experience of crossing the Hudson River rather than a detriment as we have now with the Dunn Memorial. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So again, we'll see if others have signed up to speak. And just to remind everyone, if you'd like to speak, you can use the raise hand function, or you can press *9 on your phone if you're participating by telephone. And we will stay here until 8 p.m. when we close down the hearing. So what we will do is, I'm not seeing from the registrar that there's any other speakers right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave these instructions here on the screen. If anybody changes their mind, we'll see the hand raised, or we'll be notified that there's a phone only participant, and we'll come back on and I will call on them. So with that, I'm going to take off my video and my audio, but I'm here, and as is the rest of the team and the department, and we're happy to hear any additional comments. Otherwise, we'll be back at about a few minutes before 8 and to shut down the hearing. Okay, so thank you for everybody who spoke and participated, but we'll be here till 8 o'clock. Okay, so it looks like we have no additional speakers. So we will now end the public comment session. Thank you to everyone who attended and participated in these meetings today. We will be posting a recording of the meeting on the project website in the coming weeks. As a reminder, comments will be accepted through June 15th, 2022. Comments via email may be sent to livingstonavbridge@dot.ny.gov with the subject public comment. Comments will be accepted through the project website at https://www.dot.ny.gov/Livingston Ave Bridge/contact with the subject public comment. Comments via US mail may be sent to Livingston Avenue Bridge Project, New York State Department of Transportation, Office of Design, 50 Wolf Road, POD-24, Albany, New York, 12232. And we will be closing this meeting at 8 p.m., but I wanted to just thank everybody, and we'll leave this information up here on the screen just for any last participants who want to take it down. And I just want to assure everyone that all comments are equally weighted. So if you send it in by email or by mail, that's equally as important as if you sent it to us tonight. So thank you. We're just going to keep an eye on the clock until we get to 8 p.m. But safe trip home for those of you who are still traveling. And thanks again for your participation. We just got a question in the Q&A, which I can respond to. So the comments that were made will be part of the transcript for this meeting that we will be sending it to a stenographer, and a recording of the meeting will be posted on the project website. So there will be both the recording to view as well as the meeting transcript, which will become part of the project record. So you'll have two ways to have that information. Okay, thank you and good night. This hearing is officially closed.